Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to all my blessed beloveds out there in video land. You're watching Living and Thriving with Rusty, and I'm Rusty. I just got a really interesting phone call. There is a warrant out for my arrest according to whatever number starts with a V. V6241154, blah, 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 blah. So that is really interesting because I think it's creative how these fishers and scammers and all out bad people are trying to solicit fear by calling my phone on multiple numbers and saying that they're either an officer or that there's some crime associated with my person. It is very bizarre. Anyway, so this is one of the last shows that we have for season 2 of Living and Thriving with Rusty. And I want to say thank you so much for watching and subscribing and hitting that bell. Yes, that's really important. And all the positive comments below. Anything negative, I do remove because we just don't need that kind of trollness. Gross. Today's guest is Kevin Dunlap, and I will be bringing him on in just a second. But do know that don't answer your phone if you don't know the number. Don't click on links at all, ever. And don't believe the hype on these scam artists. I get calls like that probably every 15 to 20 minutes. So I know it's the same group of people. They're just changing the number, and it's something that I wish we could put a stop to, because I know millions of people are going through the same thing. It's just really annoying. So hopefully Kevin will be joining us any minute now.
I'm here.
Are you? I see your name.
There you go.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon. How about yourself?
Very well, thank you. I was just discussing the stupid thing that's happening. I don't know if it's happening to you, but every 15 to 20 minutes, somebody calls my phone to let me know that they're going to arrest me or they're a police officer. And it's always some weird number, so you know that it's a scam call. And I wish that we could actually get a control over that, don't you?
I agree. I do get at least 3 or 4 phone calls a day as well. Some of them are solar panel stuff. Some of them are, hey, you qualify for AT&T 50%, or you've got a good account with AT&T. We'd like to offer you this. I don't have anything with AT&T. So.
Yeah. And I really appreciated all the years that they were calling me about my car warranty. I mean, they at least were checking to see if I was still alive. But now they've gone one step farther, and I'll get from Chicago, or I'll get them from New Hampshire, where they're like, oh, this is Officer Riley, and it's a recording. So, it's baloney. I'm like, come on, shoot, I got things to do. Like clean my car, something, I don't know.
Yeah.
So Kevin, what state or country are you in?
I'm in the state of Nevada. I'm in Las Vegas.
Ooh, Las Vegas, the city of sin.
That's right.
Lots of lights and lots of fun. You guys had a heck of a time during the Rona.
Yes, the whole city shut down for the whole strip shut down for several months. On Facebook, I mean, I actually walked the strip. There's some overpasses that go over Las Vegas Boulevard, like in between the MGM and whatever. And I did some video recordings. Like, hey, this is the Las Vegas Strip. And I look over my shoulder. There's not a single car, not a single person for the entire half mile down the road. Nothing.
Yeah, I actually did a lot of traveling at the beginning of the shutdown and cross country. And I will tell you that there is a bittersweet beauty to having nothing. Like it's awe-striking. And I remember it from September 11th too, because I was actually in Chicago when September 11th happened. And Chicago was completely shut down as well. And you could hear the mourning doves going across the street on Michigan Avenue, which is the busiest street there.
Okay.
And you can hear the flapping of the wings. And it was like, wow, it's almost melancholy.
Yes, it was very surreal. I went down to not only to the strip, but also downtown as well, which is basically, I call it the old strip. And not seeing, the only people that you see out there were a few construction workers and some homeless people. That's all that you saw.
Amazing.
Not a single anybody else around, which is
amazing.
When you're so used to the big hustle and bustle and don't see a single soul, It is very surreal.
So, Kevin, who are you? What do you do, and what makes you you?
My name's Kevin Dunlap. I'm a business coach and trainer as well. I'm in the process of releasing my fourth book, which is all about business, and it's the logistics of business. From what is your name, what are your colors, and when I say colors, I mean what hexadecimal code are you using for that color of blue or gold, whatever your colors are. I go through registering with the state, if you should have registered agents or not, which state should you incorporate in as your initial state. And I go through everything, all the way up to the point of the very last section is how are you going to duplicate yourself, or do you plan to duplicating yourself? Like if you're opening up a store, do you look at opening up a second store? If you've got a coaching business, do you do a certification program, or how are you, or when you're building your business, would you be able to sell your business in a few years when you're scaling it? So I find out what people do or want to do with their lives, and I try to create a custom program around that for them.
Why do you do it?
I've been an entrepreneur since 2000, well, basically since the year 2000, but full time in 2004, and just seeing other people realize their dreams can be made or can be had if they have the right planning in place and the right confidence as well, which comes from the planning. So I just love to see people, small business actually start, grow, thrive, and then able to actually I love seeing that where people are not dependent upon a job in order to make their income.
Yeah, it's kind of a dirty word, the three-letter word, J-O-B.
Just over broke.
Just over broke, exactly right. And so coaching in business myself for many years, I find it exciting. I think it's like one of the funnest things you can actually do is pep rally around growing somebody's income and changing their future.
And it is true. I mean, like, I don't know if you've ever heard of an organization called Kiva, which does microloans, kiva.org.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been with them for I don't know how many years, but I think I just gave them 120th loan just last week. And I love doing that because I love to see these people, they're asking for, denominations of $25. Maybe they're looking for a few thousand to buy a cow in Africa somewhere, so they can actually produce more milk, which to me that helps the community out as well. So it's not like you're just giving, let's say, to some kind of cancer foundation, you're giving $25, but I'm giving $25 to this guy in Africa or whatever the country he's in. They're able to not only grow their business, which provides for their family, but they also provide more services and products for their community, which just helps out the community and all. So to me, I just see this as being like a form of paying it forward, of just being able to help other businesses, and regardless of size. I don't care what you're doing. It's just, and if you're following your own passion, then more power to you.
Yeah, and that's where the spark happens, is when they get really passionate. And so let's break it down. So somebody who's watching this somewhere in the world wants to start their own business. What do you recommend as the top 5 things to check off to ensure that you really have what it takes to start a business? Because it is a legacy of love.
It is. And I mean, I was the very first thing to do is find out, number one, do you have competition, or are you a trailblazer starting something brand new? And if you're a trailblazer, then is there actually a need for what you're offering? I mean, one of my favorite movies that came back from the 1990s is a movie called Other People's Money, which stars Dane DeVito.
Yes,
and he has this big monologue at the very end about, he's talking to the shareholders of this company, this wiring company, about what if you made the best buggy whip around? At some time, there's no need for you anymore. So whenever you're starting a business, whatever it is, you have to make sure that there's a market for it. And if you have competition, then how are you going to deal with your competition, assuming that you are a local business? Or if you're a national business, what is your national competition? Or if you're an international business, what is your international competition? So, and then if you have competition, then the next thing would be, are you going to be competitors, or could you be actual collaborators? I mean, back in early 2000, I was working in real estate, and I was doing a very specific form of real estate known as lease options. I found another person that was doing exactly the same thing that I was. We sat down over a beer and we talked to how can we do business together? Instead of being competitors, how can we help each other out? And then we came up with a plan like, hey, I can market your homes, you market my homes, and that becomes a 4-win situation. It's a win for the tenant that's trying to buy a house because he's got more houses to pick from. It's a win for the owner because now he's got 2 marketing companies marketing his house for him. It's a win for me because I've got more inventory that I can market and that I didn't have before. It's a win for the other guy because he's got more homes that he can market as well, including his own and then mine. So we made it where it was a 4-win situation by just being collaborators instead of being competition.
Do you think, well, sorry, you've got 2 more.
Then, I mean, besides that, I would say, do you have the wherewithal to do this? Because it's not only the time, it's also the money aspect, and it's also the energy aspect. I mean, if you're doing this and you're taking away from your home life, from your husband, wife, kids, or whatever, are you willing to make those kinds of sacrifices? And then I guess the last thing is who's on your team. I mean, because there is no such thing as a self-made millionaire. Now, when I wrote my second book, I talked about, I'm not even, well, back then, let's say back in the 90s or whatever, if you talked about Donald Trump as a businessman, he did not do everything on his own. He had his team, he had his attorneys, he had his accountants, he had his laborers, he had his builders, he had his contractors, architects, and everything else. So when you're starting a business, the next thing is who's going to be on your team. You can't do it all by yourself. And as soon as you realize that at the very beginning of where you're no longer the lone wolf, it's actually who can you have on your support. Now, this could be mental support like a husband or a wife. It could be somebody that has skills that you don't have. Like say if you are starting let's say an architect business, well, who else is on your team? Who's approving the designs? Who's going to be doing the actual building? Who are the contractors? So you need to know who's on your team as well.
Well, and to just pick a little bit at that, sometimes the people that are currently on your team are not, they shouldn't be, they need to be fired.
They need to be fired, and that could even be your spouse.
Yeah.
It could be your parent. Now, when you say you're fired, doesn't mean that you have nothing to do with them. You just don't go to them for any kind of entrepreneurial support.
I think that it is the hardest conversation to have when people care about you and they don't resonate with the energy that you're putting forward or the passion that you see, because, Mad Hatters like me have a hard time with family who's like, no, you should get a job at, IBM or Liberty Mutual and do the 9 to 5. And I'm sitting here going, no, I want to create things. No, I don't want that. And those can be very difficult relationships in the beginning, and you have to be prepared for it.
Yes, you do. And you have to just be well aware of it. But back in the 90s, when I was living in North Carolina, I did a lot of stuff in the film industry. I was mainly doing stunts and stuff like that. And I had a roommate at that time. He was an actor, and his mom was actually telling him not to get into acting. And his name was Luke. And I say, hey, Luke, so why are you listening to your mom? She has no experience in the film industry. She has no experience with acting. She has no experience with whatever. She may mean well by telling you this. However, if she has no experience, then why are you listening to her? I mean, I hate to say it in such a harsh way, but the thing is, you have to go to people that you can that actually have the knowledge to be in order to and get your support from them, not from somebody that just means well, because their meaning well could definitely drag you back down, that lobster back down into the pot.
I think in the entrepreneurial world, actually in every aspect of life, but we're going to stick with business, you have to find pieces of your puzzle that you can emulate from other people. So for you and I, we look up at coaches and we look up at, business coaches and things like that so that we can fine tune our craft. And I think that's really important to sit back and say, okay, well, this is what I want to do when I grow up. And these people have done it. So I want to do a lot of research to see their whys and how they did it.
Well, that's a great point that you bring up, because I always suggest people read books, biographies or autobiographies of successful business people. And one of my favorite books, it was an autobiography, and I still to this day, it's one of my favorite books, is a book called Losing My Virginity. It may sound a little weird, but it was written by Sir Richard Branson. It's all about the whole Virgin Empire. So it was like, wow, it's such a good book, because, excuse me, because whenever he's giving a challenge, he does not let that challenge hold him back. He always like, what are some creative solutions that I can get through by this challenge that just came up here, that just faced me. And these are challenges is like, you need to close your business tomorrow. We're taking your business down tomorrow. Like, okay, how do we get past this? And there was like 3 or 4 different examples of the book that he gave that were, I mean, because one of his first businesses was mail order records. And so, and then what happened was then the postal workers went on strike. Well, if you got a mail order business and you got a strike that just came on and there's no mail going out for who knows how long, what do you do next? And he had no money at that time. So
that was actually before everything was automated, like
well, it was way before
Spotify and things like that.
80s. And then what he did was he went to one of the busiest streets in London, found a shoe store that was not using their second floor. He asked about doing business, opening his record store in that shoe store, where the foot traffic going to the shoe store had to go to get to him. So he got free rent, and therefore that was the very first Tower Records. But because it was initiated all because of a mail order strike when he had a mail strike when he had a mail order business. Like,
it's kind of punny that it was a shoe store.
Yes.
God's got jokes for days. So Kevin,
yes.
Do you have your books on you right there?
I have 3 of my books. I don't have my real estate book.
That's okay. Show us your goods, guy.
Well, this is my second book. It's called Designing Your Own Destiny. This is also a workbook, as you can see. So I made this so we actually would do exercises in the book itself. That came out in 2017. 2019, I came out with a book called The Winner's Code. So this is all about mindset. So this is the secrets of the winner's mindset. In this book, I have 8 different mindsets and how that applies to you in your personal life, in your entrepreneur life, as well as your work life. So this book is broken down into like 4 sections. The first section everybody should read, and then you read sections 2, 3, or 4 based upon. I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, you probably don't need to read this section on jobs. If you've got a job, the entrepreneur section may be boring to you. Now, the book that has not been released yet is my book called Launch. So this book has not come back yet. You can even see this still says this is not for resale, because this is the proof. Now, this one was 200 some odd pages. When I wrote this book, it was going to be about the same as this one, but I ended up making it 86,000 words. So it ended up becoming a huge workbook. This is part of a 3-day weekend class where you will have 44 different exercises in the book here. So therefore, when you're going through how to launch a business, this is the A to Z's in creating a successful business. It goes everything in there to what name are you using, the colors that you're using, hashtags you should be using, who's your competition, and it goes through every single step, every logistical step it takes to start a business. And when I was writing it, I kept making more and more and more, added more and more exercises. Entrepreneur, okay, when should you start taking on employees? Let's say if you're opening up a flower shop, at some point in time, you probably want to have somebody to work on the days that you want to have off. So it goes through every single detail in that. So this is made for all people, from beginning business owners to people that have maybe been around for a few years that are looking to expand and grow. So this book was written for that specific reason.
All right, so I'm gonna pop the egg open on mindset. Talk to me about mindset, and why wouldn't you, even if you're an entrepreneur, I'm going to throw this at you, and you can swat it back if you want. But as an entrepreneur, I want to know the mindset of somebody looking for a job, because right now in 2021, it's an employee market. It's not an employer market. And what employers have been doing over the last 20 years ain't working right now. It ain't working. So
Right.
as an entrepreneur, I want to juice it up and get back into the game and figure out how I'm going to entice employees. So why wouldn't I want to look at the job section of mindset?
In this book, I talk about mindset for a job. I'm talking about mindset as to how you're dealing with your coworkers, how you're dealing with your boss, or if you're the boss, how you're dealing with your underlings. That's what I meant by mindset at work. Versus the entrepreneurial side of this book is talking about what is your mindset with your clients, with your suppliers, with your competitors, with the general public, with the main public in general. So
Gotcha.
because part of the book here is about when you're creating a winner's mindset, because there's, like I said, there's the 8 mindsets, and I'll go over them really, really quick with you, and then you can see probably how they actually work. So I'm just right now in chapter 2. And we'll go over the 8 mindsets. The first one that I'm talking about is the egotistical, or the egocentric, which is basically just means, hey, that's the mindset where I'm just going to get what I want. I don't really care too much about you. It's all about me, me, me. Then if you take that to a much stronger level, then I go into what I call the taker's mindset, which is like the ego that's on steroids, where it's all about me, but now egotistical, maybe I may be concerned about you a little bit or may not. Taker is definitely, I don't give a crap about you. I just can get what I want when I want it.
Yeah, I worked
Then the
for a few
next
of
one I
those.
go into, was that?
I worked for a few of those.
Yes. And then the next one I go into is the revenger mindset. That's the I'll get you back if you do anything toward me. Then I go into what I call the pretender mindset, which is the person that is kind of like the egocentric, but they're pretending like they're running a con or whatever. They're just pretending to be your friend when they're looking to see what they can get out of you. The one that probably one of my best friends is the martyr mindset. That's where it's always about you first, me second. So it's always you're setting yourself up to lose to try to have the other person to win. Then probably one of the worst ones is what I call the victim mindset. And that's the one that woe is me person. And then of course the worst mindset of them all is the one I call the drifter mindset. That's where they were just existing through life. If you go to them a year from now, nothing has changed. Their income's the same. Their relationship is the same. They're just coasting through life, which I hate to say this is probably a lot of people are in the drifting mode. The hardest thing about them is that it's unlike, let's say, any of the other good or bad mindsets that I've already talked about before. You've got energy going into motion. With the drifter, you're at a standstill. So if the energy is in motion, it can always be redirected to another area. But if you're drifting, it's like you're that train that's trying to get started from zero. It's just like so it takes a lot more energy to shift them. Then of course the last one, of course, is the winner's mindset, which is all about the win-win. Now, if you look at those different mindsets in the workplace, you'll see some are going to be egotistical. There's going to be takers. There's going to be that victim person. There's going to be that. You will see all of those in the workplace. So how do you account for that and make this a win-win for everybody? Now, if you look at it another way, it's like, how are you with your spouse? How are you with your kids? Chapter 7 is probably the hardest chapter for people to read, is because how do you look at yourself when you look at yourself in the mirror? What is your relationship with yourself? Are you constantly saying, I'm ugly, I'm fat, I'm blah, blah, blah?
I think it's really hard for people to take ownership on themselves. I think we have filled our society up with such a, it's his fault and he's taking my job and she did this and there's a Karen and it's always accusing other people, but it's really me and how I perceive that situation and how I react to that situation.
Well, there is the big difference, which you just talked about, which is like blame mentality, or the exact opposite of that, which is probably even worse, is the victim mentality, where you always say, you take the ownership, but you take so much of the ownership that is unrealistic of what you're taking. You just, because everything always happens to me, and it's how can you start shifting that? So
Well, how do you start
that's what
shifting
this.
them? How do you shift from the Eeyore syndrome?
Well, the thing is to start looking at the positives. Not everything is always going to be negative. Not everything is the end of the world. I mean, even talk about the pandemic or the coronavirus, whatever. I mean, a lot of people went into that victim mindset, and so. But the thing is, if you're looking at it from how I'm looking at it, when I wrote this book during the pandemic. It was
I
like,
did a
how
lot.
can
I did a lot
and
too.
I want, and I, out of the 450 pages this book is, I only have one reference to the word COVID. Because I'm trying to make the book evergreen, because I don't want it to be, oh, this is a COVID, this is a pandemic book. My thing was, hey, you're sitting at home for 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, 12 months. You're getting, stipend checks, those stimulus checks and things like that. Now, this would be the perfect time to start a business. You got all the free time in the world now. So it's just a shift of that mind.
Well,
I mean, and
I
in
think
NLP is known as something that is known as reframing. Is you got the same picture. If you take the picture out of one picture frame and put it into a different picture frame, let's say you go from a wooden picture frame to a gold outline picture frame, it can completely change that picture by just how you're looking at it.
I think you're absolutely right. And for some of us, the entrepreneurial spirit just went crazy during COVID. Like I was so excited. I wrote 2 books, 2 small books, and did a ton of videos and tons of podcasts and a lot of work. And, the fruit's in the labor. And right now I'm picking my fruit.
Good. You planted all the seeds. Now the fruit is out. Now you can start reaping your rewards.
But don't you think that that's just human nature? There are individuals who see the advantage of situations and individuals who can't see past themselves. They almost resist.
Yeah, definitely. I would say probably there's more that are in the resistance than that are in the opportunity perspective of things. There's a quote in one of my books that says, why do you always take the hard road? And the person's reply is, why do you think I see 2 roads? like
But as a coach, how do you get them out of resistance? That's the key right there, is to, sometimes you just want to grab them by the lapels and shake them, but you really can't do
you
that, 'cause there's like
do.
lawsuits.
Because everybody's going to be different. I mean, it depends upon their situations. I mean, some of it is just reframing their mindset. It's like, hey, instead of looking at all these bad things, let's look at the twice as many good things that has happened. I mean, there's another kind of a quote. I'm going to paraphrase it. It says, if 19 great things happen to you today and one lousy thing happened to you today, when you go home, what do you talk about? Most people say the one lousy thing. So
Yeah.
why don't you focus on the 19 great things that happened?
And that's all about perspective, and it's about holding on to the story. And I think that's really interesting. Kevin, our hourglass is almost over. Where do we find more information about you and put up launch so that we can see it? Because this airs around Christmas, so it's a great time to buy a book.
Yeah, this book would be out by Christmas this year, 2021. I'm scheduling to be released sometime in late July, early August. However, if you just go to, just using my name, just go to my website at Kevin, the letter A, Dunlap.com. My books are on there. When I had my podcast, because I did a podcast as well for about a year where I interviewed other entrepreneurs from across the world. And excuse me, and my blogs and all that stuff is on that website. I may be switching it around a little bit for the launch of this book, but by the time the show airs, everything should be done.
Perfect. Kevin, thank you for all that you do. Keep up the good work in reframing people's minds. And you know what? We need some good entrepreneurs out there. So
yes, we do.
Let's build them and create them, because, well, Mad Hatters are needed in this world. That's how things get created.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Take care. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Rusty. Have a good day.
You're watching Living and Thriving with Rusty. I'm Rusty, and that was Kevin out of Las Vegas. Dun, dun, dun. Check him out. I think that he has great ideas. And if you are kind of spirited and you want to dabble into owning your own business or businesses, never put all your eggs in one basket, I was always told. then go and check out his books. I love the fact that it's writing on top of workbooks. So you actually get to be a work in progress, and you can kind of do it privately. You don't have to share with everybody. But if you do want to share, chime into my show below. Comments, hit the bell, subscribe. Know that you're loved, know that you're beautiful. Keep doing what you're doing. And I know you're surprised. I'm going to say be kind. Whoa, every show, I have to remind you, go and do something nice for somebody else. This is not hard stuff. Clean out your closet. Go and donate to a cafe. Write birthday cards to the elderly home. There's just so much that you can do. Doesn't have to be fanfare. It doesn't have to be paparazzi, but we need way more kindness in this world. We're kind of raw and sensitive people right now. Until next time.